My son-in-law pushed a folder across my kitchen table like he was doing me a favor. It was a Sunday, in late October. The kind of Sunday where the light comes in sideways and everything looks a little more serious than it probably is. My daughter had called the week before to say they wanted to come for brunch, just to catch up, just the four of us. I'd made my usual: scrambled eggs with dill, back bacon, sliced tomatoes, the good rye bread from the bakery on Elgin. I'd even put out the cloth napkins. I should have known something was off when my son-in-law didn't take his coat off right away. His name is Derek. He's the kind of man who uses words like proactive and going forward in regular conversation, which has always told me something about him, though I've never said so to my daughter. Her name is Audra. She's 41 years old, and she has my mother's cheekbones and her father's stubbornness, which is a combination that can go either direction depending on the day. They sat down. We ate. Derek talked about his work, something in commercial real estate, something that had apparently not been going as well as it once had, though he didn't say that directly. He never says things directly. Audra was quiet, which was unusual. She kept looking at the window. I poured more coffee. I asked about the grandchildren. They're 2 boys, 9 and 6. Audra said they were fine. Derek said they were great. There was a pause that lasted about 4 seconds too long. Then Derek opened his bag and took out the folder. It was a pale blue folder, the kind with the little metal clasp at the top. He set it in the middle of the table, between the toast rack and the butter dish, and he slid it toward me with one finger, like a card dealer. "We wanted to talk to you about something we've been thinking about for a while," he said. "And we really want you to know this comes from a place of love. Whenever someone tells you something comes from a place of love, put your hands in your pockets and check that your wallet is still there." I looked at Audra. She was looking at her coffee cup. I opened the folder. It was a brochure, or rather, several brochures, paper clipped together. The first one had a photograph on the cover, a wide, bright hallway, very clean, with a woman about my age walking down it, holding a small potted plant. She was smiling at no one in particular. The name at the top said Maplewood Gardens, Independent and Assisted Living, Canada, Ontario. Below it was another one: Sunrise Senior Communities, Ottawa Valley Locations. Then a third, with a logo I recognized because I'd seen it on a sign near the hospital. They had all been highlighted in certain places. Derek's handwriting I could tell. He'd circled the monthly rates in yellow. I set the folder down. I looked up at both of them. "You've been busy," I said. Audra finally looked at me. "Mom, we're not saying you need to go anywhere. We're just saying it might be worth thinking about. You're 67. The stairs in this house are stairs," I said. "I go up and down them every day." "We know," Derek said, in the voice he uses when he thinks he's being patient. "And that's great. But the thing is, and this is something we talked about a lot, we think it might be worth exploring your options now, while things are still good, rather than waiting until there's a crisis." I want to be clear about something. I am 67 years old. I walk 45 minutes every morning along the river. I have a book club, a garden, a volunteer shift at the library on Thursday afternoons. I drive myself everywhere I need to go. I see my doctor twice a year, and the only thing she ever says is to watch my salt intake, which I mostly do. There is nothing wrong with me. And the financial side actually makes a lot of sense, Derek continued. Because Derek always continues. If you were to sell this house now, in this market, and put the equity into a place like Maplewood, which, by the way, is a beautiful facility, you'd have your care costs covered, and you'd potentially free up capital that could. "Derek," I said. He stopped. "Whose capital?" Audra made a small sound. "I'm asking an honest question," I said. "If I sell this house and move to a facility, the equity goes where? Into my care? Into a trust? Or somewhere else?" Derek glanced at Audra. It was a very quick look, the kind couples exchange when they've rehearsed something and one of them has gone slightly off script. "Obviously, it would go toward your care costs," he said. "And any remainder would be part of your estate planning, which is something we'd want to help you think through." We actually talked to a financial planner. "Which one?" I asked. "Sorry. Which financial planner?" He named someone I'd never heard of. A name that turned out, later, to belong to a man who did most of his work for real estate investors, not for retired school teachers, not for anyone like me. I closed the folder. I pushed it back to the middle of the table. I picked up my coffee and I looked at my daughter, who still wasn't quite looking at me. "Audra," I said, "is this what you want?" She looked up then. And here is the thing about my daughter. I have known her face since before she had a face, since she was a shape on a monitor and a heartbeat on a speaker, and I know every version of it. I know the face she makes when she believes something. I know the face she makes when she's been convinced of something. These are not the same face. This was the second one. "I just think," she started. "I think it would be good to." "Okay," I said. I stood up. I started clearing the plates. "Let me think about it." They stayed another 40 minutes. Derek talked more. I listened, or seemed to. When they left, Audra hugged me in the doorway and held on a beat longer than usual, and I patted her back the way I used to when she was small and had a bad dream. I stood at the front window and watched their car until it turned at the corner. Then I sat down at my kitchen table, alone, with the blue folder in front of me, and I looked at it for a long time. Here is what they didn't know about me. I taught high school mathematics for 31 years, not because I was a woman who had no other options. I had options, but because I loved it. I loved the moment when a student who had been struggling for weeks finally understood something, really understood it, in their body, and you could see it happen on their face. I loved that my subject had no ambiguity. The answer is either right or it isn't. You can check your own work. My husband Graham died 6 years ago of a heart attack in the driveway, which is not the kind of thing you ever fully integrate, but which you do eventually learn to live around, the way you learn to live around a structural pillar in a room. After he died, I was the kind of sad that doesn't have a bottom for a while. But I found the bottom. I furnished that bottom. I built a life there that I am genuinely proud of. This house is mine. I bought it with Graham in 1987. We raised 2 children here. My son, Callum, who lives in Calgary now and calls every Sunday, who builds things with his hands for a living, and has always been, as my mother used to say, a straight talker. And Audra, my daughter, who is intelligent and capable and who made one significant decision I've never entirely understood, which was marrying Derek. But that's her business. What was my business, sitting at that kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon in October, was the folder. I opened it again. I read it carefully this time, the way I would have read a student's proof, looking for where the logic held and where it didn't. The Maplewood rates, between $4,000 and $6,500 a month, depending on level of care. My current house, paid off, worth somewhere around $800,000 in this market. The math was not complicated. If I liquidated my home and moved into a facility, I would generate capital that would, by Derek's own framing, be part of estate planning that they wanted to help me think through. With their financial planner, I set the folder down again. I called Callum that evening instead of waiting for Sunday. He picked up on the second ring. I described the brunch. I described the folder. I described Derek's highlighted rates and the financial planner whose name I had written down on the notepad by the phone. Callum didn't say anything for a moment. "Mom," he said, "do not sign anything." "I know," I said. "Call Margaret Sue," he said. She's his friend's mother, a woman I'd met twice at Callum's, who practices estate law in Ottawa and who I had always liked for the same reasons I like most people. She is direct and she doesn't waste words. I called Margaret Sue first thing Monday morning. We met for lunch that week at a restaurant near her office on Bank Street. She ordered the lentil soup and I ordered the same, and we talked for 2 hours. I brought the blue folder. She read it while we ate. She didn't highlight anything. She just read. Then she set it down, and she looked at me over her glasses. "Has anyone asked you to sign a power of attorney document?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Has anyone suggested a formal capacity assessment?" Not in those words. Derek said something about making sure everything is in order. She nodded slowly. "And the financial planner they mentioned. Do you know if he has any relationship with Derek professionally?" I didn't know, but I found out. It took one phone call to a friend who knows people in that industry. The financial planner Derek had named had worked with 3 of Derek's real estate contacts in the last 2 years. He was not someone you'd call independent. Margaret, Sue, and I met 3 more times over the following month. I want to be clear about something else. I was not angry, exactly. Or I was angry, but underneath the anger was something sadder, and I didn't want to live in that sad place, so I let the anger do the work. Anger is useful. Anger organizes. Anger got me to Bank Street on 3 separate Tuesday afternoons and kept me focused while Margaret explained the difference between a continuing power of attorney for property and a personal care directive, and why both mattered and how they could be used and misused. I already had basic documents in place. Graham and I had done that years ago with a lawyer near the old house. But those documents were old, and the world had changed, and I had changed, and it was time. By mid-November, I had a new will. A new power of attorney for property, naming Callum and my oldest friend Harriet, who has known me for 40 years and who would sooner walk into traffic than let anyone take advantage of me. A personal care directive that was detailed and specific and left very little room for interpretation. And something else. I had, quietly, transferred the house into a family trust. Margaret had suggested it, and after thinking about it for several days, I agreed. Not because I needed protection from my own daughter. I don't entirely believe Audra understood what she was participating in. But because structures matter. Because if anyone ever wanted to argue that I had made a decision about my home without understanding what I was doing, there would be a paper trail so thorough and so witnessed that there would be nothing to argue. The trust was established, the documents were signed. My name was on them alongside Callum's as co-trustee. The house was mine. The house would remain mine, in every practical and legal sense, for as long as I chose to live in it. I did not tell Audra any of this. I did not tell Derek. I called Callum and I told him everything, and he said, "Good." And then he said, "Do you want me to fly out?" And I said, "No, not yet, but thank you." Then I waited. I knew the next conversation was coming. Derek was not a man who dropped things. He was a man who repackaged things. I had watched him do it at Christmas dinners for 14 years. Let something sit, reframe it, come back to it from a different angle. He came back in January. It wasn't a brunch this time. It was a dinner. Audra's idea, she said, though I noted it was Derek who called to arrange it. They wanted to take me out, somewhere nice. We went to a restaurant in Westboro, one of those dim, warm places where everything on the menu has a farm name attached to it. It was a Wednesday, which I thought was deliberate. Midweek, when I might be more relaxed, less guarded. I ordered the pickerel. Derek ordered steak. Audra had the risotto and barely touched it. We talked about the boys, about Christmas, about a trip Derek said they were planning to take to Portugal in the spring. Then, when the main course was mostly finished and the waiter had taken the plates, Derek reached into his inside pocket and produced a folded set of papers. "We had something drawn up," he said, "just as a starting point. Obviously nothing to sign tonight. We just wanted to show you what it could look like." He unfolded it and set it on the table between us. It was a power of attorney document for property. It named Derek as primary attorney. Audra was listed as alternate. I looked at it for what felt like a long time but was probably 10 seconds. I looked at Audra. She was looking at the tablecloth. "Audra," I said. She looked up. "Did you read this before he printed it?" A pause. "We talked about it." "That's not what I asked." She didn't answer. I folded the document along its original crease. I set it on my bread plate. I reached into my purse, my good purse, the leather one I bought myself when I retired. And I took out a card, Margaret Sue's card, with the firm name and the Bank Street address, and Margaret's direct line written in her small, clear hand. I set it on top of Derek's document. "That's my estate lawyer," I said. "I've been working with her since November. She can answer any questions you have about my affairs." Derek looked at the card. He looked at me. "Your estate lawyer," he repeated. "Yes." "You've already been. Everything is in order," I said. "The house is in a family trust. My power of attorney has been assigned to people I've chosen. My will is updated. Callum is aware of all of it." I picked up my water glass. "Is there anything else you wanted to discuss?" The restaurant was warm. Someone at the next table was laughing at something. Outside the window, Westboro Avenue was quiet and dark, and there was a thin crust of snow on the parked cars. Derek picked up the card. He read it. He set it back down. His steak was getting cold. "Lorraine," he said. "That's my name. I hope you don't feel like we were trying to." "I don't feel anything in particular," I said, which was not entirely true but was close enough. I felt it was time to get my paperwork organized, so I organized it. Audra made a sound, something between a breath and a word. "Mom," she said. I didn't. She stopped. "Start it again. I want you to know that I wasn't trying to." "I know," I said, "and I do know, or I believe I know. I believe Audra is not a bad person who wanted something bad. I believe she is a woman who was frightened about money and about the future, and who let someone talk her into a frame she didn't fully examine. I've taught enough teenagers to recognize the shape of that. You get frightened, and someone hands you an explanation, and the explanation is convenient, and you don't look too hard at what it's convenient for. But I am her mother, not her student. I am not obligated to do her homework for her. I love you," I said to Audra. "I'm not angry. But I also need you to understand that I am capable of managing my own life, and I intend to keep doing it." She nodded. She was trying not to cry. I could see that. I felt something sharp and sad pass through me and then pass. Derek said nothing for the rest of dinner. He paid the bill, which he usually lets land on the table for a moment too long before picking it up. This time he picked it up right away. We hugged in the parking lot. Audra held on for a moment. I let her. I drove home along the river because I like to, because it's my city, and I've lived here for 40 years, and I know where the good lights are. I parked in my driveway. I sat there for a moment in the cold car looking at my house. The lights I'd left on, the front porch, the big spruce in the front yard that Graham planted the year we moved in, and that is now, absurdly, about 40 feet tall. This is my house. My name is on the trust document. My lawyer has a copy. Callum has a copy. There is a copy in the cedar box in my bedroom closet, between my passport and the deed. I am 67 years old. I walk 45 minutes every morning. I have a book club and a garden and a Thursday shift at the library. I am not going anywhere. I went inside. I put the kettle on. I sat at my kitchen table. The same kitchen table where a blue folder full of brochures had been slid toward me 3 months earlier. And I drank my tea, and I thought about my husband, and about the spruce tree, and about how strange it is that love and its opposite can sometimes look so similar from the outside. Then I turned off the lights, and I went upstairs, one step at a time, just like always.